I never know if it works. I always look at it like I look confused when I start to scream because that's how it is. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Super Dylan. I hope you're doing well, my friend. I'm glad that you can join us for this particular stream as well. This is going to be a good one. My name is Fiona. I use she, her pronouns, and this is Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPGs, in which I will take an RPG that has caught my fancy and has just remained in the Google Drive of my life, ready and waiting to be played. And I normally do like a random roll on a big table that I have, and I pluck out and we read them for an hour and a half, and we'll see what we like about it, what we think, if anything, can be improved about it, and obviously where you can get it, and any accessibility things as well. Hope you're doing well, my friends. I am freezing, hence why I'm wearing a gilet indoors like an idiot. It's not a fashion choice. My core is very cold. So apologies if you think like, what? Is she about to go do some mom soccer or something? No, I'm just a bit chilly, I'm afraid. Hello, Brian. Excited to hear about this game. I just backed the Dagger and Heart crowdfunding on BackerKit. Backer #G. Or you're more fancy than I am, Brian. Yes, I know that they do have a launch party happening right now on Twitch, so do feel free to go and support them and not watch me just stumble my way through an RPG. Because yes, Dagger in the Heart looks like a cracking source book for Heart, which I have played very, very recently for Actual Play UK, and I love it. I'm a really big fan of it, so it's all good. Boom, dead toothbrush, but it is very fashion. Oh, backer number 9. Right, there you go. That's my eyesight's not very good, Brian. It is very fashion. Yeah, I feel fashionable, but I also am like, ugh. I used to go to a very fancy university where quite a lot of the other folks would wear stuff like this, and I used to be like, ugh, I'll never be one of them. But it turns out gilets are quite warm. But I hope you're doing very well, my friends. I'm glad that you are here. Yep, my day has been fine. Not that you asked. Finished some editing, which is always important. Managed to cut down a lot of the guff, and hopefully tomorrow the episode will come out and it'll all be lovely. We've got some recording tonight, and then later on we've got some Baldur's Gate 3 with one Dead Toothbrush, one Hamilton, and our friend Tay. We'll be continuing our journey doing goodness knows what. I can't remember where we were last time. And I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine and nobody will die. We won't have to reload at all. Heck yeah, that is a busy day. Yes, well, a busy fun day, so that's what I said. But let's get straight to it, because, it's not about me, this stream, really. It's about what we're going to read. So today, friends, we are going to read something called Godkiller First Blood. It is a holypunk RPG for 1 player and 1 GM. God. Which I love. I love reading about different kinds of RPGs, certainly for ones for 2 players, because I think sometimes there is this sort of maybe worry about playing with just one other person, and it's the same with board games as well. Like, I know if I look right at the bottom of my pile of board games is Love at First Sight, which you don't have to play as a couple as much as it feels like you should. And that's the thing with 2-player RPGs. You don't have to be in a relationship or a partnership. You could be with anyone who just wants to play an RPG. And we have ones that are GM-less. We have ones that are 1 GM, 1 player, etc. It's just another way to tell a story. So I am very excited for this as well. The other things, nope, it's about you reading and telling us your thoughts. A classic. That is exactly what this stream is. Thank you, Dead Toothbrush. So yeah, we're going to go straight into this. So before we start, I do want to highlight the creator of this, one Connie Chang, who is an absolutely incredible creator. Their pronouns are they, he, and she, and I hopefully will try and interchange between them as we go through the stream. But they are the GM. I'm just going to go to the actual site because I do want to highlight their work. They are the GM of Transplaner, which is Transplaner is an all transgender people of color-led dark fantasy tabletop RPG channel, which tells poetic stories about flawed characters in an original, non-colonial, I can't say that word at all, Orientalist multiverse, which happens every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I again just want to signal boost and support a very, very really good actual play. I've seen a couple of the episodes myself while sort of like getting prepared for this particular stream, and yeah, absolutely blown away by the stuff there. Any nominated as well. And if you want to look at RPGs that tells different stories that aren't the usual kind of stories that we see, and like I think that I've seen clips of the finale of their first season, and it's absolutely harrowing, like the emotional depth that those players go to, and I think Connie does an amazing job, so I just wanted to quickly highlight their stuff. So that's Transplaner RPG on Twitch, wherever you would like to do it. Transplanet is a very cool actual play. Yes, I hope to get into more of it. It's one of those things that's on the list, and you can see all the places that they've been sort of referenced. You know, Dimension 20, Polygon, Dicebreaker, all the sort of all seen on. Sorry, but the reason I sort of wanted to highlight it. Oh gosh, of course I've never written this. Is that there is an actual play of Godkiller itself, which you can listen to, 16 episodes long. So after you finish this, if you're like, oh, I'd actually like to hear like a playthrough of it, then of course come and check them out here. It's just, again, it's like a little quick mini-series, which is great. But yeah, it describes it here. Godkiller First Blood is an intimate two-person drama about a heretic from a dirt poor mining town as they raise hell and kill some gods. So that's the kind of vibe you're getting about this particular RPG. And yeah, it is video and it is podcast as well. And as well as just checking out all their other stuff that they've done as well. So all the other campaigns as well. So I just thought I'd give you a quick look into like what their sort of main body of work is. So that's pretty cool. But on to Godkiller itself. Let's move that back the way it is. So you can get it for roughly about 20 US dollars, so about £17. And as I said, it's a holypunk powered by the Apocalypse RPG, which we've covered a few times on this channel before. For one player, the Godkiller, and one game master, the God of Gods. Together, the two of you will weave a mythic, violent, and transformative tale about the only mortal in existence with the power to slay a god, rising against the challenges of the divine. So you've really got that like David versus Goliath type vibe going on, which it is a very interesting sort of story to tell, isn't it? Oh, my voice just completely gave up then. Let me grab my tea as we begin. Now, which gods will you kill to shape the realm? And which gods will you spare? Bum, bum, bum. So this particular version, First Blood Edition, is a digital ash can one, which features everything you need to play a limited campaign of Godkiller, whilst the full game is still in development. So this one came out fairly recently, and actually I think I do have the full version. I'm not sure. Well, we will find out exactly. But yeah, as you can see, there is an actual play version of it featuring Connie Chang, obviously, and C. Thomas as the Godkiller. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts. Fantastic. And yet, the other things you can get with this particular version, so you get the edition, you get the character sheet, which we'll look at the moves as well, because it's powered by Apocalypse. You also get a plain text version, which is roughly about, I think, 6 pages less than the main version. Thank goodness. We can actually print it out and not worry about rules and stuff like that. Sam Size says, absolutely desperate to play this game. Oh, hello, Sam Size. Thank you for joining us. Well, yeah, as I said, you can grab a copy for roughly $20, or you can listen to, where is it? You can listen to their little mini-series of it on YouTube and Apple and all the places you can go to check it out. But yes, I'm also keen to play it as well. I've only played a handful of 2-player RPGs myself. The ones that come to mind is Mars Colony, which is absolutely cracking, by Tim C. Copan, where we shape the narrative of somebody has to save a colony that's been set on Mars against all the sort of different factions and also all the pressures and stuff, and that was very interesting. There is a cult Divinity Lost scenario called The Driver, I believe, which again is a 2-person scenario, which also looks pretty good as well. But that's it. I've played a couple I've made into 2-player scenarios, but not anything that is deliberately sort of set to be one person and another. So we're going to check those out today. Right, I've spoken for long enough. Well, let's get rid of this. But yeah, you can buy Godkiller on Connie Chang's itch, which is buyconniechang.itch.io. I think the link is in the description, but you know what? Just in case it's not, for whatever reason, there you go. I'll put it in the chat as well using wonderful Nightbot. Thank you, Nightbot. And we will go from there. So, let's dive right in. So first things first, what a great cover. Instantly love it. I believe this version I've got is 64 pages, so not too lengthy. It is, what was I going to say? It wasn't too lengthy. But again, I love the vibe of it. It's very different actually to, if we go back, goes back on one page, but it does not go back on another. Come on, Fiona, keep up. Like this image here, this sort of the banner images and the sort of logo things, looks like the gold of it is so striking. And then you come to this cover, and it's so beautiful, like really simple, but really effective. Like, I love this sort of broken sword, sort of like faded in the back. It's almost like it's pressed into the book. And this sort of marbling technique on the back reminds me of like those old tomes that you used to get, and they used to have sort of a marbling like inner pages between the two covers. But yeah, I really love that. It's so simple, but yeah, really love it. I see Nightbot has caught up on YouTube. Well done, Nightbot. So I see. So it is. I've got the double spread here, so that's fine. So let's look at the dedication. So this game is a love letter to C. Thomas. So that person that was doing the podcast version. Never stop fucking with my plans. Oh, I love you. Never stop fucking with my plans. What a great. And then we've got the credits there as well. Mark Truman. I remember the name. They've done Cartel. I'm sure they've done a whole bunch of other RPGs as well, but Cartel is the one that sticks out of my mind, because I think I got an update from that thing recently. And yeah, you got a credit there for dramaturgy for C. Thomas, which is pretty cool. But let's go on to also. The red is so beautiful, so vibrant against the sort of interior design. So gorgeous, really love that. And the sort of the yellow, whitish text against the red, really awesome. But let's look at the content. So we have we've got the gospel, we've got the introduction, we've got the epitaph, and then we've got Cradle, the Godkiller, playing the game, playing God, and then some appendixes as well. So roughly it comes under, roughly about 64 pages, which we might race through, but we will see. But ultimately 4 big chapters and then a bit of an introduction. So that's not too bad. And so I'm guessing the Cradle's that maybe the world creation and all a little bit sort of like saying what the roles are. The Godkiller's probably going to be about creating a Godkiller or thinking about what they do. And then playing the game, obviously, is going to talk about the rules, and then playing also some tips for the GM. So instantly, what I love about it, and this is just me assuming it from the contents of the first page, again, that terminology, I always bang on about it when we do Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPGs, but I love naming players, like giving players a title and giving the GM a title that is particular to the game. So obviously here we've got Godkiller and God. I just to really, here are the rules, here are the defining things. It's like, it is like a ritual in a sense, or it's almost like a play. I absolutely love that stuff. So that's why I'm always banging on about it in the sense of when we go, for the players, we've got this incredible word, fantastic. And what about the GM? Because we just called them the GM. You're like, oh, thanks. Cool, I don't get a cool title. I love giving titles. I agree, Super Dylan. I think more games should just give titles to everyone and just gets them in at the ground floor, right? So, the gospel. Let's read this through. And that's a little bit too close. I want to make sure we get the full impact. Actually, tell you what, let's zoom out because we've got this as a spread currently. Let's just look at the. Wow, just the gold is so incredible. Like I know it's currently sort of digital, but I do wonder if they plan to do like a print version at some point, because I can imagine if again, this is just me thinking ahead, like if you had like bits of gold on it, it would be a bugger to create, but God, it looks so beautiful. A very pretty book. All right, so the gospel. I weep for you. I weep for the violence the gods will inflict upon you, and the violence that you will inflict upon the gods. I weep for the person you used to be before you emerged in a baptism of fire and blood, smeared in the viscera of a life you could have led, your hopes ignited on a funeral pyre. I weep for your mortal heart, entangled in a body cursed with divine providence. I weep for your dreams. I weep for your home. I weep for your parents and the child they'll lose. Oh, I've just got shivers. Sorry, didn't mean to break the tension there, but I've got shivers. The cannibals are real, and your world worships them. They call them light and sound and water and breath and war and death and sex and drink, movement and flame, nature and destiny. Their names endless as stars, infinite at the bottom, as the bottom of sorrow. Gods. They will seek to use you in their game. You must not let them. For you are not the pawn, the worshipper, the sin confessed in darkness. You are not the witch, the heathen, the sweeping winds of change. You are not the beast, the gore, the horror lurking in the weald. You are not the revenant, the fury, the locks of hair from lovers lost. You are not the prophet, the reckoning, the greatest divinity of all. You are not the dancer, the novelty, the pretty animal in its cage. You are not the saint, the lamb, the tinder set before the altar. You are one thing and one thing only. You are the Godkiller. Credits roll. And the gods will taste your steel. So drink, my tears, lover, and wet your cheeks with my blood. I have been awaiting your arrival for 10,000 lifetimes. I can wait for one more. The cradle will know your deeds, your sins, your trophies, your epithets. Your arteries will run gold with the name of every god you'll kill. You will die, and your body will be interred in the parched banks of the dried-up river, and your enemies will weep, and I will weep, and you will finally rest. Whoa, what a great opener. 10 out of 10, absolutely. Let me turn the music down. That was a bit aggressive, the music. Let's go for this one instead. Oh, what a great opener, though. Again, it's almost like using this particular sort of like gospel or like sort of written sort of prologue. You would use that to open a session. Again, I don't know how long a session of Godkiller would be. Well, I mean, they've done it for 16 episodes, I think their little miniseries was. So maybe it's something that I would use to open at least like the first session, and maybe use it to close the first session to keep that first bit in sort of like that protective circle in a way. But yeah, really cool. Really love it. Alrighty. Let's go to the introduction. So, enhance, dehance. So, here we go. The introduction. So, Godkiller is a holypunk game for one player, the Godkiller, and one game master, the God of Gods. Together, you will weave a mythic, violent, and transformative tale about a single mortal rising against the challenges of the divine. Your story is set in the Cradle, a post-apocalyptic fantasy realm where desperate deities eat each other for survival, power, and pleasure. Holy shit. Mortals toil under the thumbs of their gods, consigned to a life of servitude and worship, scrounging for the scraps of divine favour. The colossal husks of dead gods litter a magically deformed landscape. A miasma of glowing soot hangs in the sky, thrumming with eradicated divinity. Oh god, the dissected remnants of the river, the fabled home of the gods that dried up 10,000 years ago. Everything changed when the player, through accident or providence, becomes the Godkiller, the only mortal in the Cradle capable of killing a god. Their emergence thrusts the realm into chaos. Now everyone in the Cradle, mortal and god alike, wants to control, destroy, silence, worship, exile, fuck, or dominate. Holy shit. The Godkiller is caught up in a conflict that predates them, embroiled in a holy war they never asked for, trapped between their mortal heart and their divine power. But their life is theirs, and theirs alone. So what, dear Godkiller, will your power reveal about you? Which gods will you kill to get what you want? And which gods will you spare? Love that little. Whoop. Come back to me. Oh, I can see. Yeah, I love that little at the bottom here. That little detail of that the line. Oh, nice. Oh, there we go. First Blood Edition. So this guide is all you need to start playing Godkiller, but it is not the final version of the game. Right. This is the Ashcan, a pre-release to the full text. These rules will get your Godkiller up and swinging. But even more divine splendor is ruminating in the workshop. It is powered by the Apocalypse, which means the rules first pioneered by the Apocalypse world by Vincent and Meg A. Baker. This framework powers other great games such as Irma's Shadows, Masks, A New Generation, hooray for Masks, and of course Bluebeard's Bride, absolutely cracking RPG, if I do say so myself. Familiarity with Powered by the Apocalypse games will greatly improve your experience playing and running Godkiller. Unfortunately, the first Blood Edition does not have space to explain the Apocalypse world engine in detail. That's fine. We've gone through this a few times ourselves, I think when we did Bluebeard's Bride, but if it comes up, I'll mention I'll mention any particular rules as it comes up. That being said, if you are a brave soul yearning to tell dark tales about divinity, then I invite you to dive in, kill some gods. So, Godkiller is a duet game, which means that it's built for two people: the player, who assumes the role of the titular Godkiller, and the gamemaster, here abbreviated to GM. The Godkiller is the protagonist of the game, the only mortal in the realm with the power to slay a god. The GM portrays all the other characters in the story known as non-playable characters, or NPCs. Again, I know, I would just call them something else. Maybe NGCs, non-godlike characters. I mean, it doesn't make sense because you're playing gods, but fine. They also describe the world, bringing the obstacles of the cradle to life, and provide opportunities for the Godkiller to live up to their title. Brian says, I'm guessing Magpie will release the final game. Mark Diaz treatment is the co-owner and CEO. Yes, absolutely, and yes, that's where you know what, I've seen his name on several newsletters and saying his game's coming up. So yes, absolutely. Oh, I hope so. That'd be really cool. But yeah, I don't know currently if there is a release date for the full edition of rules, but hopefully we'll find out. So, Godkiller is a single protagonist game, which means the story of a Godkiller is synonymous with the story of your shared campaign. The GM and the player should work together to weave a tale that centers the Godkiller, the deities they care about, and the adventures throughout the cradle. Whilst various NPCs can and should meddle with the Godkiller's life, the player's character should never play second fiddle to somebody else's story. The spirit of Godkiller is collaborative, not adversarial. In an adversarial game, the players try to beat the GM or each other, treating the scenes that unfold like puzzles to be solved or encounters to be won. In a collaborative game, the players and the GM work together to weave a rich and engaging narrative that is not about winning or losing, but telling a creative, fulfilling story. What this creative fulfillment means is different for everyone. Exploring what it means for your table is half the fun of playing Godkiller. The other half is, of course, killing the shit out of some cool gods. I really love the writing style. It's really fun. And this is a very good point as well. I do feel sometimes when I'm running a particular RPGs, there is a sort of thing like the players. It's not about working together necessarily. It's about like, what cool thing can I do that I can do to solve the puzzle and to have the killing blow and stuff. And I've had that with D&D very recently myself, and not through any fault of the players. I will say this right away. I just feel sometimes I'm like, oh, this is not what I want. This is boring. I want a creative, fulfilling story, please. Not does a 19 hit, Ugh. But that might be just me. Ooh. Oh, come on. This is the thing. This is why I don't really like spreads. This is anyway. When playing the game, keep your role in mind. The player and GM have different responsibilities. Knowing what's expected of you will empower you to make bold choices and tell unforgettable stories. The GM's job is to describe what's around the player, play the NPCs, and make the world feel threatening, responsive, and interesting. The player's job is to confront that world head-on with enthusiasm and curiosity. I think that's what it is that sometimes players are too cautious about interacting with stuff because they don't want to get hurt or they don't want to die. And I feel that's the thing. If I've given you a world to play with, I want you to go press all the buttons and I want you to go play with stuff, because there's no point in being cautious. Like there's point of being like careful planning and prepping, but I want you to go and play, because otherwise I have nothing to respond to and it's just a bit rubbish in that sense. I don't know. It's something I've been ruminating on recently, certainly with D&D. Like if I set you an empty hallway and they go, well, is there any traps in there? I'm like, I mean, what do you think? Like, come on, play the game. Occasionally, this means the Godkiller will fail. Their plans might implode, an NPC might thwart them, and the dice might have some ideas of their own. Oh man, the dice are sentient, I absolutely believe in that. Whilst this can be frustrating to experience, failure is a crucial part of the story of Godkiller. The main character needs to face meaningful challenges in order to experience a meaningful journey. Just because the Godkiller fails at something, that doesn't mean that the player does. The player could even be rooting for their Godkiller's downfall at certain points in their story, because experiencing defeat is sometimes more narratively interesting than winning. Yes, absolutely. If the Godkiller has got what they wanted all the time, then their story wouldn't be very fun for the GM to facilitate. Yeah, why am I there? I might as well just go read a book or something. By that same token, if the Godkiller rarely or never achieves their goals, then the campaign wouldn't be very fun for the player to experience. Communicate your feelings with your scene partner and be curious about their perspective. Godkiller is about balance, balancing the player's wishes against the GM's desires, balancing the player's ideas against the GM's plans, and balancing the player's agency against the GM's plots. God, that's so well written. Finally, playing a duet game can be an intimate and demanding experience. Respect your partner's point of view, and trust that they're behaving in good faith. Your characters might want to kill each other, but the two of you as people and creative partners should be rooting for each other. Discover the fun in narrative conflict that will naturally emerge. You are creative equals, coming together to tell a story you cannot write alone. Never forget that. Oh. Alright, so to embark on your quest, you will need someone to be the Godkiller, someone to be the GM, a character sheet, 2 6-sided dice, that's all you'll need, pencil, some scratch paper for notes, a couple of hours, and these rules. You'll also need to agree on the safety tools you want to use while in play. So I just wanted to check over. I'll go to the character sheet here so we can have a quick look. We'll look at it as we go along, presumably when we're creating the character and stuff like that. First thing to say, how I love the sort of pinky red. I love how clean it is as well. Look, the language here, thou shalt not. Oh, I love that. Oh, and you've got, and you've got like where you've killed a god and where you spared a god, like a little leaderboard, and then the gods to kill. Wow, love that. I will say this version that I have isn't form fillable. That's a bit of a shame. But I think it's clean enough, and I also think if you were to print it in black and white, it wouldn't take up too much ink. Again, these sort of boxes aren't too bad in it. So that's sometimes the problem we have with like character sheets that have a little bit of texture to them, is that they like do waste a lot more ink if you're going to print them out. But I really love that as a result. And we could look at the move sheet as well when we get to it. But yeah, let's go back to safety tools. So safety tools. When playing Godkiller, safety tools provide a useful structure for handling any difficult topics that may arise. For example, if the Godkiller stumbles upon a village that's been burnt to the ground, safety tools can facilitate what content is or isn't explored, to what degree, and for how long. Some tables might want to get gruesome, exploring a world where even children and pets aren't spared from violence. Other tables might decide to stay away from such topics. Brian says, so far this game gives me big Bluebeard's Bride vibes, perhaps with a little bit more empowerment of the PC. Yes, that's a very good point, Brian. So yeah, in Bluebeard's Bride, you are all playing, everyone at the table is playing the same character, but different aspects of the bride. Different sort of versions, you know, the fatale, the mother, the virgin, all that sort of thing. And different, not personalities per se, but different points of view, and then together you collectively move yourself through the world and trying the different rooms, and the rooms that are sort of the horrors that would scare maybe individual aspects or aspects that people would overcome. Yeah, you've got the witch and I think the Magnus. No, not the Magnus, the Animus. The Magnus is something else. It's a different game. The Animus in there as well. Yeah, I really love Bluebeard Bride. And yeah, it did reference it a little earlier as well. All right, let's go back onto safety tools. So using safety tools will make your game better, empowering you to take more risks, curate more trust at your table, and tell more daring stories. If you have a preferred method for tackling safety that isn't reflected below, go ahead and do it your way. Otherwise, you can find some helpful systems below. So yes, as we can see there, we got our wonderful lines and veils. We won't go into that too much because hopefully people should know it, but essentially, I will say, I mean, it's probably written very well here, but a line is something that we just never cross. It never comes up at the table at all. A veil is something that can be like off screen, it sort of like can be a part of the story, but it's not something we're going to focus on. So the example that I always use is about spiders. Spiders, if there's a line, we never see a spider at all. There is no mention of cobwebs, there is no mention of scuttling or anything like that. But a veil means like there are cobwebs in the room. There is the sound of scuttling off the corner, perhaps, of something running slightly on 8. Maybe 8 legs is probably that's a little bit too much. But again, it's out of focus. It is not the focus of the story, which I think is used. And I know this goes without saying as well, but you can have lines and veils about any particular topic, and you never have to justify why that is the case. The best part about lines and veils is you can always check in. If you're like, oh, we're coming up to a topic that so-and-so doesn't like spiders, let's check in and say, hey, are you okay with this? And they can go, yes, no, or, oh, let's pause, let's go back, etc. So just as always a good way to check in on that front as well. Yeah, and this tool was coined by Ron Edwards there in his game Sex and Sorcery. X card as well, basically just a way just to be like, nope, out of the scene. Again, you never have to justify why that is the case. Even though here I'm skirmishing around creatures with lots of eyes. You never have to ask for justification. The only thing I always say as a GM is that I may clarify what element it is, just in case I've missed it completely. I also encourage any players, if they see someone else use an X card, to also go for the X card as well, to make them feel supported as well. So those are the two I think it talks about there. There's loads of different other ones, like traffic light systems, the pause, play, the O card, all that sort of thing as well. But those two are the ones I see used the most in when we've been reading RPGs currently. So in addition to using these safety tools, the player and GM should abide by basic tenets of respect and communication during play. If you're not having a good time, speak up and trust that your partner will listen and adjust. If your partner is airing a grievance with you, listen to them. Do not react defensively. Let go of being right or wrong. This is a game, and your partner's feelings of comfort are more important than whatever story is being told. I think that's very true. I wonder if it's maybe it's easier. Again, your mileage may vary, and it probably depends on the RPG and the one shot, etc. I wonder if it's easier to speak to someone if it's just you and one other person playing a game together, compared to maybe group play, where you're not sure if you raising like an X card feels like you are stopping the game. I've been reading a book which was like, I think actually Brian, you might have mentioned it in our chat. Of course, it's in my bag now, so I can't find the title. But the role playing games for clinicians, the therapist game. And there was lots of research about how sometimes, safety tools are meant to empower, but there is sometimes that pressure because you don't want to stop the fun in big group settings. And I wonder here, maybe it's easier if it's just one other person, and certainly if you set up those safety tools as well, maybe it is easier to do it there, but it might not be. It might be a bit more scary, perhaps. But yeah, each their own. The epitaph. But once upon a time, child, the gods descended from the river in the sky and taught us how to worship. They taught us how to speak and build homes and cook food and fall in love. They taught us what to do and what not to do, how to think and how not to think. They taught us to pray, to obey, to devote. And finally, after we have proven our faith, the gods taught us magic. Once upon a time, the gods loved us. Then the river dried up, and the gods were stranded here, and their magic was running out. The name of the first god who died is lost to the ravages of time, but we do know one thing. The other gods witnessed, and they learned. They learned that killing brought power and magic and pleasure. And soon another god was slain. Then another and another. The corpses of fallen deities now litter the land, serving as monuments to the viciousness of divinity, the utter cruelty of desperation. The devouring, as we call it, was an age of fear and blood, and it persists to this day. Also, what a crack it there. I love this sort of blood red sky with what looks like stars on it as the background. Love it. This sort of theme of a broken sword. Wow. Alright, so chapter 1, the cradle. So, this is sort of the bit of the world building we're doing, or world setting we're doing here. So, the cradle died a long time ago, but its ghost lives on. And you call this necrotizing wound home. The massive corpses of slain deities populate ruinous tracts of land, the gaps between their bones bristling with beasts and monsters, scavengers and pillagers, mortals and smaller gods. This is a realm both beautiful and desolate. Dark mysteries lurk in the shadows of every ruined temple, every desecrated shrine, every gilded promise gone to seed. I think the book is Tabletop Role-Playing Therapy, A Guide for Clinician Game Master by Megan O'Connell. Yes, exactly, Brian. Yes, I bought it on your recommendation about halfway through. It is a cracking, easy read, I would say, and lots of information and lots of very well researched. So yeah, thank you for that. I'm really enjoying it. The river, the original home of the gods, is also dead. Legends say it used to glisten across the night sky in a lustrous plume of stars. It now hangs above our heads like an ill omen, colourless and limpid. The constant reminder of everything we've lost. One day the river shall shed its final speck of dust, and it shall die for good. And the time of mortals and gods shall come to an end. But today is not that day. Ow. Come on, Fiona. What's there? There we go. Gods. Gods are as varied as people. No two look, think, or feel exactly alike. A god might inhabit a domain, piece of territory populated and guarded by their worshippers, or they might be a wandering deity, bound to nothing but their own whims. Some gods are cruel, deriving sadistic pleasure from killing their brethren and tormenting mortals. Others are watchful, preferring more indirect methods to achieve their goals. Others still are mercurial. I love the word mercurial, by the way, it's one of my favourite words. And unpredictable, even by the standards of divinity. In the cradle, only a god can kill another god. No mortal, aside from the Godkiller, has ever accomplished such a feat. Deities can easily control, ignore, or exploit mortals, seeing them as useful tools, fun toys, beloved pets, or weak children they must protect, but never equals. Rare is the god who is kind without a catch. Ooh. And so, the immortal question begs, can a god truly understand what it means to be mortal? I'm getting proper, like, God of War, Ragnarok vibes, and obviously God of War, that game preceding it as well. Like, I know Kranos, and obviously, not Atreyu, that's Atreus. Atreyu is someone completely different in the Neverending Story. It's not a god. And I know they have like lineages and stuff like that, but those big fights between all the Norse mythology was just so interesting. So, mechanics of godhood. All gods have a hunger, a power, a heart, a downfall, and a curse. They're 5 things. To stay alive, all gods must satiate satiate their hunger, a unique craving for tangible resources, so gold, heat, fresh rainwater, or metaphysical concepts like beauty, suffering, or wanderlust. If a god's hunger goes unfulfilled for too long, then they will die. For the divine, feeding their hunger is as necessary as eating, drinking, and breathing are for mortals. All gods wield a power, a manifestation of magic unique to each deity. The description of a god's power is intentionally broad so that the GM has plenty of creative wiggle room to decide what a god can and cannot do. So for example, a deity with the power of siphoning may be able to drain the life force from mortal victims, deduce how much time someone has left on this earth, and even transfer their consciousness between vessels. Shit. Furthermore, gods can assume many forms, but their heart is the truest version of their divinity. A god of the sun may walk the cradle as a handsome woman, all brawn and golden hair and dark skin. But their heart might their heart might probably be the literal sun in the sky or the burning bush in the deepest desert. Finally, every god has a downfall, a weakness in their perfection that can kill them. When the Godkiller confronts another god in their true form and exploits their downfall, then that god dies. Guarding the nature of one's downfall is paramount to survival. And finally, all gods harbour a curse, a powerful, tormentous spell they can inflict upon their death. Gods do not need to die to curse someone. In fact, fables abound of deities cursing mortals and even other gods who cross them. To learn more about this and creating and portraying gods, we'll go to Running Gods on page 35. Ooh, I'm excited. Oh god, my foul mouth did it again. Oh dear, it's fine, we're all good. Mortals too are touched by the devouring. Some live and some die as minions tithed, isn't it? It's tithed to divinity, serving their gods in exchange for protection. Others are opportunistic marauders who rove the land in beastly gangs, preying on the weak and brawling against the strong, as the gods look on indifferently. Still, others are sellswords, grim merchants of death, who ply their trade in exchange for wealth. The topic of gods is fraught for mortals. Few dare to speak poorly of them. To provoke the ire of a god is to invite disaster. As a mortal, staying alive means keeping your head down, worshipping your god, and doing as you are told. Many mortals are pragmatic survivalists, beaten down by generations of toil and trauma, doing their best just to get by. But people, being people, find joy and solace even in the darkest of circumstances. Yes, they can be cruel and sadistic and vicious, but they can also be resilient, empathetic, and kind. Can a mortal ever truly understand what it means to be divine? Oh, I love that. There's sort of flip of the other side of the coin between like the gods and the mortals. So the Godkiller. You're the first and only mortal with the power to kill a god. Your existence is monumental. What you choose to do with your power will shape the cradle forever. You are not afforded the luxury of personhood. You can never just survive. You must carve a legend into being. You may try to avoid the affairs of gods and mortals, but destiny will always catch up to you, and your reluctance shall be punished. The world has deemed you important, and the cradle looks to you for answers about the future. You never asked for this, but neither did anyone else. Godkiller, ba 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 ba. Ooh, I just wanted to look at the image. Look at that. Like, how gorgeous is this? Like, it almost. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Looks like a mixture of like paint, but also weirdly want to say like the tech. You can really feel the texture. Oh, yeah, like a photo of like a drawing of paint or some sort. But look at that texture there, like the stone. It looks like many layers of stone with little bits of gold. Oh, gorgeous! Love that. So number 2, the Godkiller. So now the cradle is within your grasp. Let's make your Godkiller. First, you should both read through the tools of the hunt to understand the terms on the Godkiller's character sheet. All right, well we've got that. That's fine. Next, the players should make their Godkiller by reading through the birth of a Godkiller. And after that, both of you should read playing the game of how it works, and then finally towards the end of chapter 3 is the rules for starting play. Excellent, excellent. So, tools of the hunt. As the Godkiller, you are touched by fate in a way extraordinary people are not. Your inner fire burns bright. Divinity courses through your veins, gifting you strength and instincts far beyond the capacity of other mortals. Still, you are not a god. You suffer losses, reap consequences, and are subjected to the whims of the divinities even greater than your own. Well, greater for now. The following are tools at your disposal that will aid you in your quest, resources you've pilfered from gods as well as records to track your journey. In addition to your origin, covenants, and ego, these tools of the hunt will help flesh out who you are and what you're capable of. I love how currently, I know we're about to go into like how to make character creation, it just addresses you as this character straight away. It doesn't talk to the player and says like, this is what your Godkiller is going to be, think about this, and this. It is just saying that as the Godkiller, you, and it's already immersing you within the way it's talking about it, that you have been born into this life. You are extraordinary. You are not ordinary. No matter how ordinary you think you are or want to be, it can never be the case that you have to carve out this legacy, this legend, and it's a lot. It's going to be on your shoulders, and I just like how it's talking to the player as if they are already this role. It's very well crafted writing there. So divinity. You are imbued with divinity, a font of godly magic that flows through your veins, empowering you to accomplish feats beyond the grasp of ordinary mortals. Your origin describes how your divinity manifests. Otherwise, the exact definition of your divinity has been intentionally left vague. Oh, I see now. So they're going to use examples, presumably from their podcast, which is pretty cool. So we'll read out a few of them and see how. So C plays Rune the Godkiller, whose origin is the wronged, making their divinity fearsome, dark, and hard to control. C decides their divinity manifests as the ability to see the ghosts of mortals and gods. Connie, the GM, pushes C to imagine how the gods might be fearsome or hard to control, because that goes back to this bit here. C decides that these spirits are vengeful, constantly straining to burst from Rune's soul, and causing their divinity to bleed from them in volatile bursts. Oh wow. This sounds like flavoursome. Or maybe there's different, I'm guessing if there's different like words perhaps we can pull. What your divinity can and cannot do is negotiable. Negotiable. Can't even say it. Can be discussed and contextual. Working out the details with your GM on a case-to-case basis, interpreting and harnessing your divinity according to your particular circumstances. Sometimes using your divinity to overcome a problem will just work, no rolls or mechanics required. Other times the GM might decide that what you're attempting is enough to trigger a move. We'll learn more about resolving uncertain outcomes with moves later on, so yeah, that's when the Powered by the Apocalypse system will kick in. So when you dive into your first session, your divinity is dormant, meaning you can only access a tiny portion of it. You are Achilles with a clogged heel, Superman weighed down by kryptonite, or Korra suffering from a blocked key. While your divinity is dormant, you can certainly try to accomplish godly feats, but your actions might have a lesser effect than intended or even backfire on you. Not right. Oh, maybe it is. Oh, I should just do that, shouldn't I? There's an example there of a sort of playthrough. Ooh. So, Let's try this. So you can awaken your divinity by playing into your divine trigger, which is determined by your origin. When you wake your divinity, godhood pumps through your veins, filling you with power and confidence. While your divinity is awakened, you can harness it as established during the character creation to full effects and with full control. You are Achilles with his spear, Superman flying at the speed of sound, or Korra skillfully bending all four elements at once. I like the fact, again, so you're using that example of dormant, awake, currently these two stages of your divinity, and then also having those three examples. Having three is always good, but having three different examples that might speak to maybe different audiences. So obviously Achilles, people who are into their Greek myths, Superman for maybe sort of the superhero stuff, and obviously Korra perhaps aimed at a younger audience, perhaps. I don't think so per se, but you get the idea that there's three different kinds of heroes that have incredible power, or godlike power for sure. Whilst your divinity is awake, you can unleash it at any time to complete a single astounding feat. When you unleash your divinity, godhood explodes from your soul, altering the flow of destiny and bending the fates themselves to your will. You are Achilles dragging Hector around the gates of Troy, Superman spinning back time, or Korra entering the Avatar state to defeat a perilous foe. Unleashing your divinity is a divine move, which you'll find about later on page 25. After you unleash your divinity, it becomes dormant again, and you must play into your divine Origin's divine trigger to awaken it once more. You can't stack divine triggers. Your divinity is either dormant or awake, no compromises. In other words, if your divinity is awake, play into your divine trigger a second time won't grant you two opportunities to unleash it. It can't be hoarded, so unleash your godly fury whenever you want to tip the scales of fate in your favour. Nice. Yes, again, I'm getting proper God of War vibes where you unleash your special powers and you just go ham, and then it just resets down and you have to build it back up again. Fair enough. Okay. Powers. So all gods have a power, a unique suite of abilities beyond mortal comprehension. Like a Godkiller's divinity, a god... Wait, have I missed something? That feels... Nope. I'm just being silly. Like a Godkiller's divinity, a god's power is unique to them and allows them to accomplish incredible feats. In the Cradle, only deities and a special few others can wield powers, such as chosen servants or monsters twisted by magic. The GM determines how each person's power works and portrays them accordingly. When a god wants to wield their power, they can just do it. No role needed and no questions asked. Gods can even harness their power directly imperil the Godkiller. As the Godkiller, you can also wield powers, but these abilities are not native to you. You must acquire powers from gods, often by force. Every time you kill or spare a god, ooh, that's interesting, you gain a semblance of their power for yourself, unlocking the ability to wield their power in the same way they did. It doesn't matter if you attempt to kill or spare them was disastrous, you obtain a fragment of their power regardless. Divine magic is dangerous, and your ability to wield stolen magic is never quite as impactful or as controlled as the god you stole it from. You can channel lesser versions of what they can do, but you'll always be limited by your mortal understanding of their ability. To learn more about wielding a power, page 26. If you want to overcome your mortal limitations and make full use of a power you've claimed, you can attempt to manifest a miracle. When you manifest a miracle, you can untap the latent godhood within you, harnessing a power to its fullest extent to do anything you bid it to do. As long as the feat can reasonably be justified within the description of the power. Manifesting a miracle incurs a steep price, however, as the magic burns through you, singing your will into reality. You lose the ability to wield that power forever. Whoa, it's like a one or nothing. It's like a final, finish him move, isn't it? Wow. To learn more about this, about manifesting a miracle, page 32. Wow, so cool. Strain. Strain describes any and all forms of stress, so emotional, physical, emotional, mental, and magical. You have 5 strain boxes. Let's have a look-see. Strain. Here you go, at the top here. Oh, wrong one. Let's move this over here so I've got it there. When you're told to suffer strain, usually expressed as 1 strain or 2 strain, check the corresponding number of boxes. Your strain boxes will provide a holistic overview of the character's mental and physical state. Strain represents bodily harm as well as emotional duress. Being bitten by a rabid god beast, being publicly humiliated, or learning that your lover has betrayed you are all reasons that you might mark strain. Ultimately, the GM has final say over what constitutes strain and how many boxes you should mark at a given time. When you are free of strain, you haven't taken any damage and your mind is unclouded. When you mark your first strain, you've taken a blow or 2, but you'll be fine. Your wounds are superficial or temporary. They probably won't even scar. When you mark your second strain, you've weathered some hits. Your pride might be wounded. You might be missing some teeth. You'll definitely be sore in the morning, but still, you'll live. When you mark your third strain, you're not doing well. You may be significantly injured, burnt flesh, broken ribs, shattered limbs, or exhausted. You might be reeling from some catastrophic revelation. Your mind could be splintered, leaking consciousness like a sieve. Your life is probably in danger. When you mark your fourth strain, your life is definitely in danger. You're on death's door. Your body is broken, crumpled. Your mind looks like it's been fed through a meat grinder. Chances are your divinity is the only thing keeping you up right now. You take one more good hit, you'll die. When you mark your fifth strain, you enter a moment of choice and change where your very life hangs in the balance. To learn more about what happens after marking your fifth strain, turn to Crucible moves on page 30. Ooh. There are 2 ways to clear strain. First is by tending to your wounds in a narratively appropriate fashion, so, treating bruises with compress, ice and rest, healing emotional injuries by confiding in a loved one, lifting spiritual ailments by purifying your soul at an altar, etc., etc. The GM may impose special clear conditions on some traumas. For instance, if you've been burnt by a gout of cursed flame, you might only be able to clear those boxes of strain by bathing in a blessed pond. Either way, clearing strain normally takes resources, safety, and time. A second way to clear strain is by playing into your mortal trigger, determined by your origin. This removes all strain regardless of source, but can be difficult or even impossible to achieve in a given situation, depending on your particular trigger. So pay close attention to your mortal trigger. Activating it might help in a pinch. It's frozen. No, don't freeze. There we go. Don't panic, everyone. It's unfrozen. So, curses. So during your doomed and exalted quest to change the cradle forever, you may find yourself the target of a curse. A curse is a powerful, a magical obligation or a prohibition placed upon you as punishment. Gods like to curse mortals that trespass against them. The terms of a curse are always phrased like so, thou shalt not. That is here. It tells you, and you can little box underneath saying who they've cursed by. Quite nice. Well, quite nice. In the cradle, there are 3 known ways to break a curse. The first is simple but dangerous. Violate its terms and await disaster. Provided that you survive the consequences of your trespass, the curse will no longer have any hold over you. You can learn more about this on page 30 under Crucible moves. The second makes you vulnerable. Beseech a god for a favour. No god lifts a curse without a price, and you should be wary of those who promise they will. There is always a cost. The third way is complicated and rare. Some curses may have special cures, like true love's kiss, or consuming the still beating heart of a martyr. Oh wow. To learn if your curse has a cure, you may need to travel to a holy site, consult a prophet, or divine omens from freshly spilled entrails. Your GM will tell you what the usual method is in your world. Just temper your hopes. Bones may come up empty, and there may not be a cure for your affliction. There may be other ways to lift a curse, but you'll have to figure those out as you play. I love this. It's so evocative, isn't it? It feels like proper epic levels. Yeah, I know I keep going back to God of War, but I instantly see like going on a quest to like save someone and then killing someone's like a martyr to eat their beating heart and stuff like that. Oh, yes. Alright, so those are the tools we've got to look through. But now we're on to, I think, presumably character creation. So now we've got to handle the tools. It's time to emerge in a baptism of blood and fire. Consult the following to create your own Godkiller, then read Playing the Game, see what you can do with your character, and learn how the game works. The end of that chapter provides rules for starting play. So, yes, origin. So you were once a normal, you were a normal person once before you realised what you could do. So choose an origin. So this is what I was asking before. I wondered if it was like some options. We've got there you go. We've got some options. I can see them coming up. So. Choose an origin. When you answer your origin questions, do so with the knowledge that you haven't killed a god yet. Oh, that's good to know. You'll get that during your first session on page 34. Again, also, you make a note of your divine and mortal triggers, but don't worry about those yet. You learn more about divinity and strain on pages 11 and 15, which is what we've done. So what we've got, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, see what we've got. So we've got the nobody, the wronged, the devout, and the godling. And that's all we've got. Ooh. Some simple ones. Well, let's go through all of them. Why the heck not? Why the heck not, indeed. So the nobody. The nobody is here by accident. Your divinity is hidden, strange and brand new to you. Answer the following. What humble life are you leaving behind? Why did you never fit in? What are you so desperate to gain? The divine trigger we get is when you overcome a dangerous obstacle with nothing but your mortal wits or skills, awaken your divinity. Your mortal trigger, when you put your own life or limb on the line to help someone dangerous, clear all strain. Ooh, that is so delicious. I love it. It's sort of broad enough that you can really bring them out and play. Oh, I love that. Okay, the wronged. The wronged seeks revenge. Your divinity is fearsome, dark, and hard to control. Oh, that's a good point. What did I say for this divinity? Your divinity is hidden, strange, and brand new. So that's how you have to flavour that power that you get. Okay. What was I going to say? Come on. Answer the following. What tragedy did you survive? Did you alone survive? Why did you blame yourself? Who's really responsible? The wrong's divine trigger we have when you turn to violence against someone who slanders or mocks your pain, awaken your divinity. A mortal trigger when you share your hidden pain with someone who has broken your trust, clear all strain. Ooh. Yes. Yes. Okay. The devout. The devout used to worship a god, but no longer. Your divinity is radiant, soft, and inevitable. No, not inevitable. Enviable, sorry. Answer the following. What beautiful lie did you believe? What horrific act opened your eyes? Why can you never worship that god again? The divine trigger, when you expose the hidden cruelty, lies, or manipulation of a god to the mortals that worship them, awaken your divinity. The mortal trigger is when you sacrifice something personal or valuable to a god, clear or strain. I really like that. The devout. Oh, that could have such an interesting arc to play through. I mean, we'll find out what godling is in a second, but I've already in my, that could be my favourite of what we've read so far. Godling. Godling is the secret child of a mortal and god whose love was never meant to be. Your divinity is both your parents split down the middle. Ooh. Answer the following. In what destined way did your parents meet? What terrible fate befell your mortal parent? Why must your divine parent forsake will disavow you. The divine trigger is that when you hurl yourself into obvious danger to help a mortal, you awaken your divinity. The mortal trigger is when you take a serious risk to pursue a new lead about your mortal or divine parent, clear or strain. So yeah, that also could be a very interesting character to play. Yeah, I think I think if I was gonna pick and create a Godkiller, I think I'd go for that devout background because I just think that's just, for me, the stories it could tell could be really interesting. All right, covenants. So your relationship with divinity is complicated. Choose 3 gods to form a covenant with. Yeah. You can consult the list of deities in the appendix, or make up a god for each covenant with your GM. You can learn more about making gods from scratch in chapter 4. So, what have we? So we have to choose 3 gods. So we have to pick 3 from here and assign them this, right? Let's zoom out a little bit to see what we've got. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 sort of covenants, and then we want to have 3. And then it goes on to ego. Okay, so we've got worship. You presumably worship this god, tithe. What sacrifice must you regularly offer to show your devotion? Terror. You fear this god. What act of providence did you witness them perform? You owe this god with debt. During what time of need did they answer your prayer? Tutelage. You studied under this god. What mystical part of themselves did they imprint upon you? Ooh, lust. You desire this god. What foolish thing have you done to make them notice you? Oh, it's all Mister and Gale all over. Oh. Grief. You mourn this god. What dangerous secret does their corpse still hold? Ooh, wow, yes. And then bitterness. You resent this god. What gold and beautiful thing do they have that you desperately want? Wow, I really like that. It's kind of all different aspects, which could be both positive and negative, and beautiful and powerful, but make for really great tension whilst creating your character. That's pretty cool. I really like that. Ego. So this is the final bit of the character creation, I think. So your name will be remembered forever. Choose your identity wisely. Pick at least one from each list or create your own. This is where you have your name, gender, and flaws. I love how gender is lots of different things. Haunted, God's tongue, radiant, monster, queer. Flaws. We've got doormat, abrasive, hot-tempered, romantic. Beetle there for names. Gallow. Fatima, antler. Nice. Nice, just very simple, straightforward. Like, pick one of these, create your own. Doesn't matter. These are all flavors. Choose your identity wisely. And then straight on to 3, playing the game. Gosh, we're racing through, aren't we? So, the game as a conversation. Let me zoom in a little bit. How are we doing on time? Oh, over an hour. That's not too bad, is it? At its core, Godkiller is a conversation between the player and the game master. Listen to your partner, ask questions, share your ideas, and be open to letting go of your plans. You might have a specific vision for how a scene could play out, or how to embody a character, but let your partner's contribution change your mind. Work towards telling a story neither of you could imagine on your own. Both your ideas matter. Eventually, you'll reach a point in the conversation where you don't know what happens next. To resolve uncertainty, turn to the moves. Moves push the story forward in big ways. When they happen, brace yourself. The fiction is about to change. Sure actions like buying wares from a merchant, intimidating a peasant, or starting a campfire doesn't require moves. Their outcome is certain, so you and the GM can just agree on what happens. Unsure actions like stealthing through a bandit camp or confronting a guard or wielding violence might require a move. Using moves isn't like rolling for a skill check, tossing dice on the table whenever the GM demands it. Instead, every move has a trigger, a specific narrative context that required to activate it. These triggers will tell you exactly what needs to happen in order to use the related move. First, you'll hit the trigger, then you'll make the move. So yes, very typical of Powered by the Apocalypse. They have their sort of triggering, the trigger phrase at the top, and then what that entails in the move. So for example, to trigger challenge someone dangerous, you can't just challenge whomever you please. As the move suggests, they need to be dangerous. The text of the move further explains that there also needs to be an audience. If you challenge someone who isn't dangerous or you don't have an audience, you and the GM can just say what happens. The move doesn't trigger. Alternatively, you could collectively decide that there is an audience, or that they actually are dangerous, introducing brand new elements into the fiction. Engage in conversation until things become risky or unclear. Then make a move. The types of mood. So there's only 4 types of mood in mood. I mean, Godkiller is a mood, right? But there's 4 types of move in Godkiller. We've got mortal moves, divine moves, crucible moves, and renown moves. Each type of move addresses a different set of situations and intentions, and provides special tools for resolving conflict. Intention is also important. You can find more information about each kind of move and where to use it under their specific section. So if I go over then to the moves list here. Oh, I see. So yeah, so we've got, so I guess it's categories. We've got mortal moves here, divine moves, crucible moves, and then renown moves here. I see. So in mortal moves, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Divine, we've got quite a few. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Crucible, we've got 5. And then renown, we've got 2. So in total, it says 10, 16, 18. Phew. Oh no, Fiona's doing maths. I really like that glass cannon gif. It felt too true for me. The dice and their tiered outcomes. So all divine moves and some crucible moves will require you to roll 2d6 to determine what happens next. So when you roll 2d6, add the result of each die, including any relevant modifiers, and then finally compare your number against the move's list of outcomes. For divine moves, there are 3 outcomes: a miss, a hit, and an overkill. For some crucible moves, there's also 3 outcomes, graded differently, so a miss, a hit, and a strong hit. For more information about these and the moves that use them, go to 25 and page 30. We're getting there on that. Quite close, I think. What page are we on? We're on page 22 currently. Okay. The GM doesn't roll dice. Hooray! Instead, they push the fiction by responding to the outcome of the player's rolls. If you disagree with your partner about what a move means, how to work it out, or when it should be triggered, just talk it out. Pause the story and speak to each other as creative equals. Mortal and renown moves do not utilize dice, nor do they utilize bands for success like misses, hits, strong hits, or overkills. Instead, the move tells you to answer questions or make choices. Follow the move and resolve the uncertainties you face. Interesting. So you just have prompts for questions there. We won't look into it just now because it'll come up as we go through, but I was just like, oh, interesting. Here we go. The first category, we've got mortal moves. They represent your connection to your humanity. They're a mixed bag, just like you. When you engage them, you'll always take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. You'll gain knowledge about the world and overcome obstacles, but you'll also get hit with trouble. To resolve a mortal move, you must fulfill a narrative trigger and choose one of the 2 prompts to answer. One prompt grants an advantage and the other furnishes a consequence. The GM will answer the prompt you don't pick. Ooh. If you're stuck, you can always let the GM answer both prompts. Oh, that's cool. I like that. Whether you describe the boon or the drawback is up to you, but the GM might ask for a different answer if they think it should be stronger, weaker, or more in tune with the spirit of the prompt. Your answer is always rooted in the reality of the fiction and will move the story forward, reveal new information, or provide insight into your character's state of mind. So we've got, she says, do as you're told, connect with someone, pray for guidance, act impulsively, feel someone or something out. So do as you're told. When you do as you're told, say how you show submission and answer 1. The GM will show you a glimpse of their true intentions as they answer the other. So you could either answer, how are you rewarded? And what vulnerability do you reveal? According to some gods, the best position for a mortal to be in is on their knees. When you do so, as you're told, you'll always find a prize waiting for you, but you'll also make yourself vulnerable to someone who may not always have your best interests at heart, with a capital H there. Connect with someone, so when you try to connect with someone, tell them something intimate and answer one of the following. The GM will reveal a fragment of their pain as they answer the other. So, what common ground do we share, and what still divides us? Excuse me. People can be cruel, selfish, and desperate little things, but they can also be compassionate in a way the gods may never understand. Just remember, where there's common ground, there's difference too. The cradle is ruthless, and will always divide you. No two mortals think alike. Pray for guidance. When you pray for guidance, name the aid you seek and answer one. The GM will describe the aid that actually comes as they answer the other. I like that. I like how, yeah, it says like, this is what you do, and this is what the GM will do in the meantime. So we've got 2 prompts for this. What kind of god answers your prayers? What unclear omens or visions besiege you? Besiege me? Ooh, besiege me. Interesting. Sorry, that took me off a little bit. Besiege you is what I thought it was going to say. Speak unto the river, the core you seek. You choose what kind of god responds. You can't name a specific deity. You can only describe the type of god that replies. If you choose to describe the omens and visions, you cannot give yourself clear answers. They have to be vague. Oh, hello, Brian. So this discussion of moves makes me think of the night move in The Between and Brindlewood Bay a bit. Moves are used when things are dangerous, and that's the part where the GM asks what the character is afraid of will happen if they fail or lose their nerve. Perhaps a bit like those question prompts from certain moves. Although in The Between and Brindlewood Bay, they still always have to roll a dice roll. Very true. And also, I think the night move as well is the GM, once the player has said what they fear most, the GM has to go, it's worse than that, and narrate something even worse that could happen as a consequence, almost like a negotiating thing. But I do like these prompts for both people, so it's not just relying on one person when you're making these moves. And it's interesting, I think, getting rid of the dice rolls for mortal moves as well. It means we can just get on with like playing out. Like there's still stuff for us to do, and what we say will change the narrative and impact on the narrative, and that doesn't need a dice roll for it, which I've not really seen before, so I quite like that. It's worse than that is utterly brilliant. Yeah, I love that. I want a t-shirt with that on that says, it's worse than that. I've arrived. Let's see. It always gets a reaction from players. It does. Well, a bit of the advice that I know Jason Cordova does in The Between is that often players will go like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? So, oh, my character could die. And it's like, no, it's much worse than that. And maybe sometimes as a GM or as the facilitator, you have to think of like really out there things, but it's because you want the players to think about the worst things that can happen. It's not as simple as just killing off the character and you're not playing anymore, and having to work around like, you got to make it. It just feels like it's just like a statement, isn't it? Oh, I die. It's like, well, no, your character breaks their leg, and as a result they can't give the information to the rest of the team, and so they go into danger. So actually you're impacting on their investigation, and they could be in minor peril as well. It's not just you being selfish about like, oh, I can't play anymore. No, I really like it. It's worse than that. I think it's just a great phrase. I should just break out in meetings, I just be like, oh, so Fiona, have you got any reports on the thing? And I go, it's worse than that. We've got act impulsively. When you act impulsively, describe the emotion that drives you and answer one of the following. The GM will tell you something you didn't notice until now as they answer the other. We've got, what advantage do you seize? And also, what trouble hits you hard and fast? Acting impulsively as a mortal is as mortal gets. When you leap without looking, you seize an advantage that you would otherwise may not have secured. A weapon, a secret, the first blow. However, you also curry trouble as unseen complications or obvious hazards rear their ugly head. And then finally we've got feel something or someone or something out. So when you try and feel out a person, a place, or a thing, say what you want clarity about and answer one. The GM will give you clarity that you seek as the answer to the other. So this is more direct than anything, rather than like the other side of the coin. It's like, I want to know about this, and the player goes, the game master goes, I will give you that. What feels welcoming on the surface? What feels dark and unnerving when I peer deeper in? When you try to sense what's really going on, you're describing your Godkiller's limited and biased perspective. It's because I'm thinking about D&D. Perspective. What feels welcoming to them might actually be sinister, and what looks dangerous might actually be an opportunity. Only your GM can decide for sure. I have used It's Worse Than That at work. Amazing, Brian. Kudos to you. You get inspiration in your next meeting. How's that? So it finally says, you don't need to trigger a mortal move every single time one might be relevant, although triggering a move is fun. Promise. Acting impulsively, doing as you're told, and feeling someone out are common things your character might do multiple times throughout a session. Ultimately, you and your GM decide when a moment feels important enough to warrant a mortal move. You can always work things out in fiction, but the rules are there to help you push the story forward. Absolutely, yeah. You don't want to be bogged around about going, I think it was that move, I've triggered this move. I think just keeping things moving. You can always be like, oh, pause. Sounds like we're heading towards this particular mortal move. Shall we enact it? It's always good to pause. And especially, you can always edit it out in the, you're doing content. Alright, so that's that first category. That was mortal moves. We're now going to the divine moves. There's 6 of these ones. They represent your connection to your godhood. They're forceful and demanding, just like you, and the world reels in their wake. Each divine move is accompanied by a list of statements you consult when you make a move. You must add one to your roll for each true statement, potentially altering the outcome of your move. Oh, wait, adding +1 to the roll? Oh, interesting. If your result is a 7 to 9, that is a hit. A hit pushes the story forward in a controlled manner that gives the player a lot of agency over what happens next. If your result is a 10 or above, that is an overkill. What you set out to do, you do what you set out to do, but you also go too far, lose control, or show your hand. You might also attract the attention of powerful foes that you prefer to avoid. However, if your result is 6 or lower, that is a miss. You falter, underwhelm, or leave yourself vulnerable to the opposition. Generally speaking, the GM gets to decide what happens next on a miss. They might inflict strain or even bestow a curse on you. Just like hits, overkills, and misses also push the story forward, but in more shocking ways that the GM gets to decide. So you can use the divine moves even if your divinity is dormant. If you want to complete control over how a divine move plays out, you can always unleash your divinity as long as it's awakened. Okay, so what have we got? So we've got inflict violence, wield a power, challenge someone dangerous, recognize a god, tempt fate, and unleash your divinity. Those are the 6 ones we've got here. So the first one is, there we go. Inflict violence. So when you inflict violence on someone, roll 2d6 and add 1 for each true statement. They wish you harm. You're desperate. It's personal. You know what? This is pretty cool because normally with Powered by the Apocalypse, you have, I think, between 4 to 5 stats, and you get usually at the beginning, it's +1, 0, -1, and you just divvy up like that. And maybe you have a few other starting different stats depending on what playbook you're using. And that's it. That's where you would add something to the roll. Here, it's telling you if this is true in this context, add a +1 to your roll. So cool. That's really cool. So we would add a +1 for each of the following statements if they're true. So they wish you harm. You're desperate. It's personal. Ooh, I like that. I think it's good that there's only 3 of them as well. So on a hit, so 7 to 9, this part of the fight ends on your terms. If it is an overkill, so that's +10, 10 or more, you lose yourself to righteous fury. The GM will tell you the cost of your divinity. And on a 6 and below, a miss, the opposition seizes a flaw in your approach. Suffer 2 strain. and the GM will describe the corner you're backed into. The only little thing I'm going to say about this would be nice if there was a little bit of formatting on that. So like highlight, hit, this is what happens. Overkill, bolden it, put it as bullet points, just so we can actually see it at a quick glance. Because I think if I go to this, no, it's the same on here as well. It's not emboldened at all on Divine Moves. I'll just make it just so it's super clear when you look for those the levels of success, just so you get it right. Especially because, if you miss, that's 2 strain. 2 out of your 5 strain. So when you unleash violence, you wield your divinity like a blade. Ooh, on a hit, you decide how the fight turns out. And it's also, it's just deciding how the fight ends quickly. We're not going back and forth. It's not blow for blow for blow. It really focuses on this, the conversation aspect in this game. On an overkill, bloodthirst overwhelms you, and your GM will furnish a devastating consequence as a cost to your overflowing divinity. And on a miss, your opponent bites back, teeth bared. Your approach is flawed, and the GM will put you in a bad position. So you could have it one and done in this particular fight. So the second one we've got is wield a power. When you wield a power to do something only a god can do, roll 2d6 and add 1 for each true statement. So you've done the specific act before perfectly. You're desperate for this to work. Mark 1 strain. Ooh, yes, I like that. You're sort of adding something to it. You're close to a shrine, lair, or a domain of a god you took this power from. On a hit, you do it. On an overkill, the GM will describe how you also drain, terrify, and wreck what's around you. And on a miss, your power sputters. And your enemy seize on your weakness. Suffer 2 strain to achieve this full effect before they can react. Ooh, I see. So they seize your weakness, but then you're like, and you pull out from the strain, and you go to you overexert yourself, and then achieve the full effect before they can actually react on it. Oh. Very cool. Editor, how the best crits? Oh, thank you, Dead Toothbrush. Not really. It's just more me going. I just know if somebody asked me, oh, what do I do on a hit, and I'm like, trying to find it quickly. It's not because what I tend to do. Oh, before I did too long, didn't read. I used to go through an RPG. If I was going to run it, I used to go for it and then make a quick cheat sheet. That would be 2 pages and putting all the specific rules on, and often it would be just copy and pasting and then reformatting and never changing anything about the game itself, just to be able to be like, okay, this is what you're looking for, rather than people looking through books and stuff like that. Just because I don't want them to get away from the game, I want them to be immersed in it, and it's up to me to find it. But if I couldn't find that in 30 seconds, I mean, it's quite a short rule book, we're about halfway through just now, but yeah. Put editor, if I get paid editor prices, that would be great. I will never get paid for it. Divine magic is a privilege reserved for the gods and their chosen servants. And now, you. On a hit, you do what you set out to do, no ground ceded. On an overkill, there's a grave cost to your success. On a miss, you fail completely. You can always push yourself to achieve the intended effect. You are a Godkiller after all. But the cost is an enormous at 3 strain. Sometimes it's smarter to back down so you leak rooms. Well, it says 2 strain here. Unless you're talking about... Oh, come on, thing. Unless you're talking about the, this one. You mark that and then you suffer this, perhaps? I wonder if it was supposed to be 3 strain rather than 2 strain. On a miss, you fail completely. You can always push yourself to achieve your intended effect. Well, Godkiller, but the cost is at 3 strain. That would make it if you did both of these 2, perhaps. I don't know. I do not know. Ooh. Divinity versus powers. Although powers and divinity both provide the Godkiller with incredible talents, there are 2 important distinctions to keep in mind. First, powers may come and go, but divinity is an inherent part of who the Godkiller is. Second, the protagonist's control over their powers may vary from scene to scene, but the Godkiller's divinity can never truly be stripped from them. Ultimately, the Godkiller's divinity is a unique manifestation of their godhood that distinguishes them from mortals and gods alike, whereas powers are additional skills they have acquired by killing and sparing gods. A deeper delve into divinity, the Godkiller's divinity is a crucial aspect of their identity and an intrinsic part of who they are. The Godkiller could have acquired their divinity from some faithful, irrevocable question mark, way of, or they were simply born with it. For example, Heracles sprang from the Alcmene, a full-blooded demigod, blessed with immense strength. The unique manifestation of his particular divinity. I read something the other day which was like, what if normal words sounded like Greek gay? Oh, I won't remember it now. I don't know. I'm referring to a meme I saw 4 weeks ago, and now I can't remember it. And that's boring chat from Howard here, so apologies. On the other hand, Sun Wukong was born a normal if intelligent monkey until he ate the peaches of immortality and roasted in the brazier of the 8 trigrams. Even when the Godkiller's divinity is dormant, it still has an effect on the world. At his lowest, Heracles is still strong. His strength just might not be enough to overcome all the challenges. Similarly, Sun Wukong may be immortal no matter what, but he can still be knocked out, captured, and even have his abilities suppressed, though through, say, a magical restraining circlet. Oh, this must be some anime or some sort of myth that I'm not aware of. I'll have to look that up afterwards. That sounds quite cool, though. A pertinent peek into powers. PPP. DDD. Powers are specific abilities wielded by gods and acquired by the Godkiller through the act of killing or sparing a deity. When the Godkiller wants to do something incredible with their newfound skills, they must trigger a move, wield a power. They must trigger the move, wield a power. Unlike divinity, powers are not innate to the Godkiller, and their knack for using them depends on their intention, their experience, and the cruel whims of fate. A good comparison is Zagreus from Hades. Oh, I never played Hades. I don't like roguelike games like that. I find them really dull. I hear it's a very good game and great voice acting. I much prefer stuff like Dark Dungeon myself. There you go. Who earns the ability to wield various gods' boons as he progresses throughout the underworld, i.e. Zeus's lightning, Artemis's unerring eye, or Poseidon's watery might. Alright, back to our divinity moves. So this is the third one. Challenge someone dangerous. When you challenge someone dangerous in front of an audience, say what foolish or risky action you'll hope they'll take and roll 2d6. Add 1 for each of the true statements. They care about your opinion. They think you're stronger than you. They think they're stronger than you and the crowd is on your side. I guess the only thing I'd say is I would just make this, it says add 1. I think it's just have it as a, as the symbol +1. To indicate you're adding it to the 2d6. On a hit, your target rises to the bait. On an overkill, you push too far, the target reacts instantly and dangerously. And on a miss, your target turns the tables on you with cutting words or very real threats. Suffer 2 strain to resist their provocations or immediately do something foolish and risky in response. That's like a nice and/or thing. I like that. So you could either go, stand firm, or you could go, you son of a bitch, and jump in for it. As a mouthy upstart in the cradle, you can always try to goad an opponent, but they must be dangerous. On a hit, they react exactly how you want them to. And on an overkill, they act as baited, but they also do something you didn't anticipate. And it is always dangerous. On a miss, they prove to be more cunning than you bargained for. You must immediately take action to your own detriment or suffer 2 strain. I guess that may be the only thing I would say for this one, the wield of power one. You just take that to automatically fight the enemy. It doesn't say I guess because you're taking damage. I guess because it's different because you're taking damage and stuff. Maybe I don't know. Then so that was someone dangerous. Recognize a god. So when you want to recognize the signs or influence of a god of the cradle, roll 2d6 and add 1 for each true statement. You've got you're in or near their domain. You're familiar with their gospel. It'd be bad if you didn't know. It'd be bad if you didn't know. Wait, what does that mean? On a hit, the GM will give you a clear interpretation of the omens. Ask your GM a single follow-up question of your choosing, and they must answer honestly. On an overkill, you realize your divinity is actively trespassing against them right now. The GM will say how. And on a miss, the GM will tell you only the most common legends about them and nothing more. I don't understand what that means. It'd be bad if you didn't know. It'd be bad if you didn't know. Like flecks of blood on a tyrant's blade, there are more gods in the cradle than you can count. On a hit, you're very familiar with a god. On an overkill, you're also very familiar, but it's a bad thing. The GM will remind you how you've trespassed against them, whether intentionally or not. On a miss, your knowledge is restricted to commonly known myths or folklore. Okay. Then we've got the fifth one, which is tempt fate. When you tempt fate with your actions, say what perilous feat you're trying to accomplish and then roll 2d6. Add 1 for each true statement. A skilled ally is lending you a hand. You have no other options. You're far from any god that wishes you harm. On a hit, you get through it mostly unscathed. The fates spare you for now. But on an overkill, you triumph over the specific ordeal, but you attract the attention of your enemies and they react immediately. On a miss, the fates laugh in your face. The GM will describe how your plan implodes. When the stakes are high, hearts are pounding, and no other move quite applies, you'd always decide to tempt fate. Ah, so this is like your go-to divinity move, I see. Tell the GM what peril you wish to undertake or survive. On a hit, you get through it, for now. On an overkill, you get through it, but your efforts draw unwanted attention from your opponents. On a miss, you're fucked. Amazing. And then the sixth move we've got is Unleash Your Divinity. When you unleash your awakened divinity, describe how your godhood surges forward as you exert your will upon reality. You accomplish a single brilliant feat with one side effect of your choosing. Ooh! Oh, this one you don't roll 2d6 for. Amazing. So it is brief, it is obvious, it is unstable. It just happens. And then the only condition afterwards is after your divinity becomes dormant once again. When you unleash your divinity, you temporarily seize control of the narrative. You decide what happens next and what your Godkiller is capable of. While you could unleash your divinity to accomplish what other divine moves have already cover, for example, inflicting violence or tempting fate, this move lacks a specific narrative trigger for a reason, allowing you to describe any number of actions that fit your Godkiller's particular divinity. The only limitations here are your imagination and the side effect you choose, though the GM may furnish additional consequences at their behest. Ooh. Nice. Alright, third type, we've got crucible moves. These are special and rare, and they aren't used every session. They cover crucial and difficult situations when the Godkiller decides who they're going to become. The effects of these moves are always devastating. The Godkiller, the Cradle, or both. They utilize dice, killing a god, sparing a god, and suffering your fifth strain. Or 3 of them, sorry. The outcomes of these rolls are graded differently from the divine moves. A 7 to 9 is still a hit, a 6 is still a miss, but a 10 is a strong hit. A really good thing. There's no such thing as overkills and crucible moves. They represent acts of providence, Hail Mary moments when fate and fate alone determines the outcome. Because of this, you never add modifiers to these moves. You also can't unleash your divinity in any of the crucible moves. Okay. Kill a god. When you confront a god in their true form, exploit their downfall to kill them. Describe how you slay them and roll 2d6. On a hit, they seize something vital from you as well. Name what vital part of you lose. On a strong hit, their death transforms, liberates, or shields an aspect of the cradle. Describe what and how. On a miss, they bestow a curse upon you with their dying breath. Regardless of your role, you seize a semblance of your power. Okay, so that's the final sort of triggering thing. I see. So when you kill a god, brace yourself. The cradle is about to change. A god's death is always transformative. Tyrant or saint, they pass their fate. Passing alters fate. Murder is messy. There's no perfect way to slay a god. Even a 10 plus incurs consequences. No matter what they roll, you always get furnished. The GM always gets to furnish consequences beyond your control, so prepare yourself. They always die as well. I just realised that. They take something from you, they change what the cradle does, or they bestow a curse on you as they die. Spare a god. Ah, this is the opposite way, right, I see. So when you confront a god in their true form and reveal you know their downfall, but relent at the last moment, describe how you spare them and roll 2d6. On a hit, they perform a single favour of your choosing, such as lifting a curse or performing a miracle. On a strong hit, you can also bind them with a curse of your own. Say what they must never do, and they must obey. On a miss, the river seals your choice. Your mercy is eternal, and you can never kill them, no matter how they trespass you against you in the future. Regardless of how you roll, you receive a semblance of their power. Ooh. When a god is spared, they are always aware that this is an act of mercy. On a 7 to 9, that god will perform a single favour from you. The favour must be within their ability. The GM decides what is possible. On a 10 plus, in addition to gaining a single favour, you'll also bind that god with a curse if you so choose. Lay out the terms of the geas in the following way. Thou shalt never... Yeah, like handing down a commandment, isn't it? But then finally, on a miss, your choice is to spare the god is written in stone. You lose the ability to ever slay them again, even if they act against you. It's almost like sealing that pathway. You can never go, and you can never. It's blocked off forever. You have to reload the game again. Okay, so we've got violate a curse. It's this third one. So when you violate the terms of a curse, await disaster and answer 1. What shatters beyond repair? What mutates? Yeah, mutates beyond recognition, and what shifts beyond your reach? The GM will answer the other one, describing how the curse surges forward to claim its due. When all is said and done, erase the curse from your sheet. You are freed. The quickest way to break a curse is to simply violate its terms, but the effects are always terrible. You must answer one of the 3 questions. Your GM will tell you if your response sates Destiny's Hunger. Then your GM will pick 2 to answer themselves. No, it doesn't. It says here they'll answer the one other. Pick 2 to answer themselves and describe how the curse is broken, as well as the terrible consequence that follow. Then and only then are you freed. I think just a little bit of copy editing to make sure. Like, I feel like you got 3 here. It makes sense that they would pick the other 2 to answer, but here it says they'll answer one other. I think you just double check which ones you're going through. It had it for that earlier one as well, for the strain. Then we've got manifest a miracle as number 4. So when you want to manifest a miracle, sacrifice a power. Yes, I remember this from earlier. Describe how you channel that power into the world into its fullest potential, and then erase it from your sheet. You can never use it again. Usually when you wield a power, you channel a fraction of the original god's ability into the cradle. Manifesting a miracle is different. For a single heartbeat, you seize the control of the narrative. You get to describe how power hurtles into the world to its fullest potential, changing the tide of a battle, reshaping the world, or even altering the laws of reality. The price for this power is, of course, that you may never use it again. And then finally, this is it, the suffering your 5th strain. So, when you suffer your 5th strain, choose whether you succumb or persevere. If you succumb to the strain of your existence, describe how divinity explodes from you and die, altering the cradle forever. If you choose to persevere, roll 2d6. On a hit, clear 1 strain, but also reveal 1. Also reveal 1 to your opponent as you fight through the pain. So these are these ones. So a weakness or flaw they can exploit, something you desperately desire, your true hidden intentions. On a strong hit, though, divinity surges through you and clear all strain and describe how you forge ahead, turning a dire situation on its head. Oh my god, that is so cool. But on a miss, you fall unconscious, clear 1 strain, and the GM will describe the desperate scene you find yourself in when you wake. Every time you suffer your 5th strain, you choose whether you die or survive. You're the main character. The ending of your story is in your hands, even if fate knocks you to your knees. If you choose to die, you control the circumstances of your death. If you choose to live, so be it. But there will be consequences to defying destiny. Whew. Brilliant. The true stakes of Godkiller lies not in whether the Godkiller lives or dies, but whether they succeed or fail in their goals. Even if you survive, your loved ones could perish at the hands of a vengeful god. Alright, and then finally we've got renown moves. We've only got 2 here. So these are the fourth and final kind of moves you'll make. These moves encapsulate your reputation throughout the cradle and track your journey as the Godkiller. If you're at a loss of what to do and the other moves don't address your needs, then you should then turn to your renown moves. In the first Blood edition, there are 2 tiers of renown moves, Servant and Vagabond. Servant moves apply to Godkillers at the very beginning of their journey, when they've killed only one single god. The Vagabond moves apply to more seasoned Godkillers who have killed or spared several gods and are well on their way to killing more. Each tier provides a special list of questions you can always ask no matter what is happening in the session. They're a great resource when you're in a bind or when you want to find out more about the world. Just know when you progress to Vagabond moves, you lose access to Servant moves. Oh, okay, great. So when you're starting out, Servant says, when you've killed or spared exactly one god, you can ask one of the following once per session. Who here will help me despite danger? How can I make them trust me? How can I pass unnoticed? Servant moves represent the very beginning of your journey and become available when you killed exactly one god, no more, no less. At this tier, you're a relative nobody. You enjoy the boons of anonymity, but you're also always underestimated. You will give you the time of day and you must strive to prove yourself worthy. And then finally, we've got Vagabond. When you've killed or spared more than one god, you can ask one of the following once per session. What aren't they telling me? What god has a hold on them? What do they know of me or my deeds? Vagabond moves encapsulate the middle of your story. You gain access when you've killed or spared more than one god. As your reputation as the god killer grows, rumours of your deeds circulate. Some might even seek you out. Very God of War then. You'll accomplish feats, accrue favours, and accumulate debts. By the end of your Vagabond journey, all the Cradle shall know your name. This makes me wonder then if there's going to be more tiers in the full version then. You get to a point where maybe there's going to be a final tier. Maybe I expect it to be one more perhaps. Anyway, now going on to the first session. So you should be familiar with the tools as the Godkiller and have a protagonist all fleshed out and ready for pain. It's recommended that the GM will read through Chapter 4, which we might have time for. Yeah, we'll have a bit of time for it. But it's time to set up the first session. So the first task then for the first session is to flesh out the Godkiller's home as a team. The player starts by answering a question of their choosing from this list. Then the GM answers a question of their choosing and go back and forth until you have a good grasp on what the Cradle looks like. Nice. I'm always a big fan of group questionnaires. So, what beautiful place in the Cradle do you call home? And what about it is broken? What god rules your home? And what must you give to them in exchange? Who is your closest friend, and why can they never truly understand you? Who is the local heretic, and how are they humiliated or punished every day? What group of mortals or monsters threaten your home, and what god do they serve? Once you've done creating your home, it's time for the two of you to decide what god does the Godkiller kill first. There's no right or wrong answer. Co-create a deity that makes sense given the themes you're exploring, the world you've made together, and the Godkiller's backstory. Once a god has been selected, work together to determine how the Godkiller figures out or stumbles into their heart and downfall. Remember that the Godkiller is the first mortal to ever slay a god. They probably wouldn't go into this scene expecting to win, or even live. When all these pieces are in place, you're ready to play. The GM should kick off things with a rousing narration describing the Godkiller at the threshold of the doomed god, heart and downfall in view, adrenaline surging through their veins. Then the player should describe their character, what they look like, what they're feeling, and what they do next. When the time is right, it's time to kill a god. Trigger the Crucible move and let the dice guide the story. What happens next is up to you two, up to the two of you. The Godkiller's tale is now in your hand. 99% of the time, the author recommends that the Godkiller struggles in their decision to kill or spare a god. The first session is the 1% where the author passionately encourages the Godkiller to kill. As the name of the book suggests, Godkiller posits the Godkiller has at least killed one god at the start of play. However, your table, your rules. Fair enough. Alright, on to playing gods. This is the final sort of chapter. Hello, God. Welcome to your cradle. As the game master, you will breathe in life into this decaying realm, challenge your player to live up to their tithe, and portray gods, mortals, and monsters of the cradle. In this chapter, I've provided tools to aid you in your quest, agendas and principles to serve as your narrative guideposts, whilst the GM moves may offer tangible ideas for you to implement. So there's GM moves as well. That makes sense. Structured world-building questions like this are great, says Brian. Makes me really eager to try this. Sometimes when the setting is too defined, I just feel like I'm playing in somebody else's world, and it feels more at arm's length. Yes, I agree. And I did brush over it a little bit, but that first session, there's only 5 questions. So if the player goes first, they're going to have the majority of the questions answered. So it's going to be mostly tailored to their experience, this world. I'm a big fan of questions. I'm a big fan of short questions as well. And these feel wide enough and vague enough to bring into what we're envisioning on this page. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the sort of world building stuff on that front. And yeah, I agree. I was watching before we started the stream. I was watching the Lancer review that Quinn's Quest has just put up, and that looks like there's a lot of lore in that. I've never played Lancer. It's always been something I've been like, oh, that could be quite interesting. But the way they talked about how the lore is very, very important. The world is, certainly from the core rulebook, it seemed inaccessible unless you've read it all. But then other books around it, the supplements, break it down a little bit. So it's trying to put, if you were going to do your own version in the Lancer world, it might be trickier. That's what I got from the review anyway. Sad. Ultimately, Godkiller is about killing gods. The game's core play loops. The game's core play loop revolves around the Godkiller embarking on a quest to confront a god, getting close to that god's heart, gathering intel about their downfall, killing or sparing that god, grappling with the fallout, and then embarking on a new quest to confront a new god. You're gonna kick ass. Mostly your Godkillers. Just remember, kicking their ass is fun and all, but you're also here to see them bloom in their most important moments. They need wins, reaching the hated god, seeing their long-lost sibling, confronting the assassin that took their mother's life. Make sure your player has plenty of opportunities to participate in, and even co-create moments that matter to their story. As a GM, one of the most important tensions you'll need to balance is knowing when to push your player and when to lay off the gas. Don't be overly precious about keeping your gods safe. Throw them into your Godkiller's face. Taunt them, laugh at them, dare them. Save the big bads for later, but minor villains are fair game. After all, the game is called Godkiller, so let them kill some gods. Your job is to build obstacles between your Godkiller and the gods they want to kill or spare, and make them take that choice seriously. Giving them heart-wrenching reasons to want to spare these terrible gods and kill seemingly benign ones, butter them up with an obvious setup, then throw in a wrench against their expectations at the last minute. That's the real secret of facilitating this game. GMing a duet game is a catered performance, a serenade, a one-person show for an audience who's also your only actor. It is an immense privilege. Your player is trusting you with their character and their heart, so treat them well, honour their story, and always root for them. Indeed, indeed. Our agendas are to depict a mythic and decrepit realm, center the struggle between gods and mortals, and play to find out the Godkiller's destiny. As the GM, your agendas address the overarching themes of the game, regardless of your table's specific premise. Agendas comprise the beating heart of Godkiller, the big picture concepts that emerge as you string multiple sessions together. As it is multiple sessions, it kind of makes sense that it would be. Staying true to these agendas ensures the best Godkiller experience possible. More than anything, the cradle you create and discover together should feel real. Interacting with a god should feel grandiose and intense. The stakes should matter. Big choices should have big consequences. Never let a player forget that the gods are cannibals, and mortals suffer, and only the Godkiller can change this. So, it's going to go into these in a bit more detail. So, depict a mythic and decrepit realm. So, the Cradle is a magnificent corpse. Once a glorious realm brimming with magic, its salt-parched lands are now pockmarked with lambent ruins, graveyards, and desiccated corpses of gods. The dead river hangs in the sky like an aurora borealis. I have to think about that one sometimes. Gone to seed. The hollow embers of stars suspended in a miasma of splendid filth. This is a world abandoned, yet beautiful. The ghost of the cradle haunts every scene, and it is your job as a GM to bring its spectre to life. Mythic means the world is grand and sweeping, filled with massive structures and legends about a glory that once was. Decrepit means the cradle is gothic, wasted, darkly resplendent like a flower blooming in the socket of a skull. Oh. Though the world is long dead, it is your duty to make it feel alive. Center the struggle between gods and mortals. So there is no escape from divinity. Gods are always scheming and mortals are always caught in the crossfire. Some appreciate the protection the worship affords them, whilst others resent their servitude. Similarly, some gods are fond of the mortals they protect, whilst others see them as pawns, pets, toys or food. This tension touches on every part of the cradle. There are 3 types of conflict in Godkiller: mortals fighting mortals, mortals fighting gods, and gods fighting gods. You should portray as many of these struggles as you can, offering strong and opposing opinions about what it means to be a god, mortal, or a Godkiller. Portray conflicting viewpoints with equal attention and care, and let your player decide what struggles they'll align themselves with. You'll know you're doing your job when your player agonizes over whether they should kill or spare a god. Play to find out the Godkiller's destiny. When you sit down to play Godkiller for the first time, you should decide a great many things together with your player. The themes you'll explore, the gods that populate the cradle, the Godkiller's origin, and so on. However, the ultimate outcome of the Godkiller's fate should always remain unknown. Don't preordain how the story will end. Give your Godkiller real choices and honour their agency. At the end of the day, your player should generate their own meaning about their character's identity. Give yourself permission to warp, change, and transform your own understandings of divinity, morality, and the power through the act of spontaneous play. Open yourself up to their ideas and invite them to consider yours as well. Play to find out the end of the story together. Some really good writing here. Really, really stunned about how good it is. So we've got principles. So principles is describe the cradle's riches and ruins. Address the Godkiller, not the player. Yep. Cloak your moves in radiance. Ooh. Asking leading questions and give tough answers. Name everyone and give them all gospels. Treat them according to other people's desires. Follow their wants and poach their ideas. Always. Make the cradle's problems their own. Be their greatest threat and biggest ally. These are principles that are your session-to-session guidelines to achieve your overarching agendas. So those 3 agendas we just spoke about. So drink a little drink of water. There we go. And move the story forward. When your player turns to you for something to do, you can always leverage your principles to spin the fiction in a compelling direction. So this is a very traditional sort of Powered by the Apocalypse thing, having these principles. We've got quite a few. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Alrighty. The cradle is hungry. And the gods eat their siblings' flesh to stay alive. Show the cradle in its entirety, from its opulence to its desiccation. There are temples gilded with pearls and filthy lairs of ravenous monsters. Domains teeming with green and deserts filled with waste. Maybe the cradle doesn't need to return to Utopia. Maybe Utopia is already here. growing like a rose through the concrete, clutched in fingers of tyrants. Can your Godkiller pry it free? Address the Godkiller, not the player. This is sort of a natural thing. Use the name of the Godkiller. They are an active participant in the story, not an impartial observer, so make them feel like one. Tell them what they see, hear, taste, smell, and feel. Engage their senses, describe the world around them, and let them choose how to respond to it. Cloak your moves in holy myths. So when a move calls for a GM to do or describe something, just don't read the text out loud. And I'm a bad one for this, I will say. Instead, fold your move into the flow of the fiction. Let's say you want to reveal what someone really wants as a GM move, but instead of saying, I'm going to reveal what this character really wants now, describe what the revelation looks and feels like. Dogtooth narrows his eyes. His playful veneer sloughs off his face, revealing something dark and hungry. Like a good magician, cloak your moves, principles, and agendas in showman. Nice. Ask leading questions and give tough answers. When a story hits a lull or you're not sure what to do next, you can always ask a leading question. For example, what about the Shrine Maiden terrifies you? Or, where have you seen this sellsword before? A leading question is a great way to give your player some creative agency while still building on the narrative you're creating as a GM. By the same token, offer tough answers. When your player probes you for truths about the world, reach for dramatic and unexpected responses. Name everyone and give them all gospels. Every single person in a cradle lives and dies by a gospel. Philosophy, essentially. A set of tenets that defines their worldview and drives them to action. A marauder might pillage to appease her wrathful god. A monster might lash out to defend her clutch of eggs. Everyone has a reason for doing the things they do, and these reasons make them real. Think about what drives your NPCs and portray them truthfully. Treat them according to other people's desire. Everyone in the cradle wants something different from the Godkiller. Treat your player accordingly. Some NPCs will interfere with the plans. Others will attempt to manipulate or seduce them. Display an unyielding range of desires and thrust your Godkiller into the middle of everything. Let them decide what company they keep and what wants they decide to satisfy, if any. Follow their wants and poach their ideas. So your world, NPCs and plots should be related to your players' interests. Follow their lead. Integrate their backstory into the central thrust of the narrative. If you're ever in doubt about what your player wants, ask. Also, steal their ideas. Listen to their theories and nab their shiny bits for the story. They might even come up with better twists, with twists better than yours. It happens all the time. I'm a constant borrow with credit person, for sure. Make the Cradle's problems their own. So give your Godkiller some skin in the game. Endanger their loved ones. Threaten their home. Steal their favourite sword. If you're struggling to come up with a direct buy-in, create some NPCs to be the narrative foils and hold up a mirror to their internal struggles. As the game progresses, leverage the Godkiller's increasing renown against them. Everyone wants something from them. Yes, very much like Horizon Zero Dawn. One woman's quest to get from A to B and is constantly stopped to help everyone else out along the way. Be their greatest threat and biggest allies. This is the final principle. You are the player's biggest fan, their strongest advocate, and their closest friend. Root for them. Care about their fun. If they're rolling poorly or getting frustrated, relent. Let their plans succeed without the usual risk and uncertainty. Give them some wins. They've earned it. A game that's all doom. That's all that time is never as interesting as a with. Wait, hang on. A game that's all doom all the time is never as interesting as a with a varied emotional palette. I don't know about that line. I don't know about that line at all. All right, here's some GM. Oh wow. Here are some GM moves we've got. So if something goes wrong, if it asks for a GM move, so might not go into too much detail about these. I think hopefully some of them should be obvious. We've got inflict strain, involve a god and their influence, name a ruin and give it a story, endanger a loved one, reveal what someone really wants, pit allies against each other, rest evil in a halo and wings, smear goodness in blood and sacrifice. Oh, that sounds amazing, that one. Show how a place has changed in their absence, Give them what they want for a price. Signal impending danger, so that's almost like an omen type thing. Connect unrelated people, places, and intrigues. Always ask, what do you do? Yes. Okay, we might not read all of these out, because I think most of them seem fairly straightforward. I'll read this a little bit out for sure. The GM moves are moment-to-moment actions you can take to fulfill your principles. You can use these moves to drive the action forward, furnish consequences for risky or missed rolls, and add tension to a lull in the story. Whenever there's a pause in the fiction and your player looks to you for something to happen, it's time to hit them with a GM. There are two approaches you can take to a move, going harder or going softer, so yes, soft and hard moves. Going harder establishes irrevocable consequences, moves the fiction several steps forward without the player's input, or requires immediate action from the Godkiller to prevent further damage. Going softer sets up harder approaches, foreshadows bad things, or gives the player a chance to mitigate or reverse the consequences. As a GM, you want to vary the kinds of approaches you embody for your GM moves. If you're hitting them with harder approaches all the time, the story can feel unbalanced, and punishing. If you only pad the narrative with softer approaches, then the fiction can feel meandering and inconsequential, so mix it up. It doesn't really say, like, here currently, doesn't say like which one of these would be hard moves and soft moves. Like inflicting strain, it's always a hard move because that is kind of hit points. So you've only got 5 hit points. I just don't know, like pitted allies against each other could be a hard move. It would be nice just to indicate which one of these are hard moves. So I wouldn't be inflicting strain all the time. I know that from past experience. Yeah, it says here you can deal strain freely, but don't overdo it to give them a chance to rally. So that to me is a hard move. Got some other ones here. So involve a god and their influence, endanger a loved one. That's always good. I love that one. Reveal what someone really wants. Pit allies against each other. Give your villains a story and a point. Make them charming, seductive, interesting, and tragic. Make them fucking hot. Let the Godkiller wonder who the real monsters are. I love that as a principle. As a move, sorry, not a principle. Pretty wild, isn't it? Always describe what you do. Understanding your Godkiller. Alright. How are we doing on time? Oof. I'm going to give it to 1:15 and then I have to dash because then I've got a recording at 1:30 and I need to just quickly go over my notes. So, understanding your Godkiller. During character creation process, you'll notice your player gravitating towards certain concepts, ideas, and themes. Pay close attention and take plenty of notes. All this stuff is rich, usable grist for the story mill. The following sections discuss the core narrative principles behind each aspect of character creation and use this knowledge to inform NPCs, plots, and settings you'll create. Oh, that's quite cool. So it almost does like, yeah, it breaks it down to things. Oh, well, let's look at the Devout one. So the Devout is a tale of self-discovery and breaking free from a lie you've believed your entire life. The Devout's questions revolve around a crisis of faith, inciting incident that shakes their very sense of identity to its foundation. Ideally, the god they worship should be the first god they kill. Players who pick the Devout want to tear down idols they once believed in, rewrite worship on their own terms, and rediscover what it means to be soft. Give them hypocrites to call out gods that deserve mercy, and mortals that remind them of their former ignorance. That's really good. So you literally breaking down it. The Bluebird's Bride does something similar as well, saying like each of the aspects when they're answering stuff in their initial questions, it goes, so that when talking about this is what the fears are, this is what it connects to, and this is how you can create the rooms and the information for the rest of the story. I think it's brilliant. Covenant and setting. This will shape the cradle's shape, tone, and timbre at the start of the game. Many of these deities will serve as the primary agents of chaos and tension during the first leg of the Godkiller's journey. Write notes about the connection between their chosen gods, plot hooks, and twists that you can introduce further down the line. And then the ego signals how they would like to be treated by other characters in the game. The items on each list are loaded. So for example, if they select monster as their gender, the NPCs has to regard them as one. Better yet, ask them what being a monster means to them. Ooh. By the same token, their flaws provide vulnerabilities you can tempt or exploit. Godkiller who is abrasive and hot-tempered will want to resolve all of their problems by force, so challenge them with obstacles that they can't bull rush. That's interesting, I hadn't thought of that. Right, NPCs. So, just again, I'm just being aware of time, I might just rush through. So we've got general guidelines is to give them a gospel, so like give them like a real point of view. Make a strong first impression, so striking debut. An entrance that sets up some stakes and entices the Godkiller to interact with them. That's a good shout for any NPC, to be honest with you. Make bold choices. Unlike the Godkiller, your NPCs can come and go that befits the narrative. Don't be afraid to shock your players with their actions and backstory. Ow. And that last one there, right notes? No, not again. Hello, Hogan. How you doing, my friend? Thank you for giving me the sub last night. There's the what was it? The subscription to RPG. Very, very kind of you. I hope you're doing well, my friend. Hope you're doing well. We're just coming to the end of the stream, but hey, go check it out. It's been a very good RPG. And writing a gospel, so this is getting that guidance style for the NPC. So we've got some examples here, so we can. Ooh, I like this. So giving them like a keyword, and then writing a couple of lines of what this means as a backstory. Includes a god. Excellent. So a god's gospel may be related to other aspects of their persona, such as their hunger, heart, and downfall, but not necessarily. That is very interesting. Gospels aren't written in stone. Like everything in this chapter, they're a tool and a toy to help you run the game. Use them as you see fit. And then we've got stuff for making and portraying gods. Again, we're running out of time, unfortunately. So they've all got to have a hunger, a power, a heart, a downfall, and a curse. We'll just capitalise that C. And then we've got some pre-made ones there in Appendix 1, which we can look at in our own time. And then a little bit more description about it. I really like how it's been written. Sure. Killing and sparing gods. When inevitably a player kills or spares a god, the GM must answer what terrible thing happens next. The act of killing or sparing a god is always momentous, so now's your chance to advocate your agendas, fulfilling your principles, and hit your godkiller with those hard GM moves. You can turn to omens and ripples. Ooh. An omen is an ominous portent that points towards some nebulous burgeoning doom. Typically, they're open-ended perversion upon the natural world. Their purpose is to make a god's death feel instantaneously momentous. The omens cloak the god's death in holy myth and offer your player a sense of their place in the setting. Let your player generate their own meaning about what an omen signifies and resist the urge to give clear answers. Here's some ideas. Blood rains from the river from above, a magical tempest and lights, a flock of bone-white birds swarms the skies in human voices. That's really cool. I wonder, they might be in the appendix, I wonder if there's like tables that we could roll on to give an examples of that, in case we couldn't come up with them straight away. And then we have a ripple. A ripple is a repercussion of the god's death. When a player kills a god, the divine move generates a direct consequence regardless of the roll. In contrast, a ripple is an indirect echo of your godkiller's actions as the people of the cradle realize what has transpired. Here is some examples. So the killed god was sustaining important magic. Now everything's fucked. The denizens scatter. This domain is forever abandoned and cursed. You make a sworn enemy who will hunt you down until you or they are dead. These are tools for making a god's death feel consequential. They're also there to empower you to fling gods into your god's killer's face. Play fast and loose with the lives of your divines. Even if your god killer kills them, their death will always, it will always impact the cradle, and the story will always turn forward. Like these, I really do. I just hope, like I said, I hope there's like some tables for them, which we can look into. Sparing a god should also feel impactful. When the deed is done, secretly decide whether the spared god is grateful or resentful. Grateful gods will try to further the godkiller's vision for the cradle. This is usually a good thing. When shit gets tough for your godkiller, you can pull on these allies to aid them. A literal Deus Ex Machina to give your players a win. A grateful god can be also a hindrance. After all, the mind of a god is an incalculable thing. A spared god in interpretation of the godkiller's will might be worlds away from their actual intention. They might end up hurting more than helping, which can also be fun. On the other hand, resentful gods are bitter about being spared and will conspire against the godkiller until placated, strong-armed, or killed. A resentful god is an active agent, brainstorms on schemes they might undertake and unexpected alliances they might forge. It doesn't mean foolish. These gods will not underestimate the Godkiller a second time. They might even take extra precautions to safeguard their plans and don't reveal which choice you've made to the Godkiller. By hiding a god's attitude from your player, you'll keep them guessing as to about what the spare deities might do next. Ooh, I really like that. There's not just a one and done, they always are an active part in the story. Yeah, really cool. And then we've got a big long example, which we won't read through, but again, this will probably be very good. Like, I'm now considering watching through the actual play with C and Connie about Godkiller that they did on Transplanar RPG. I really quite like. I want to see some of these moves in action, particularly some of those divine moves, and like going from your divinity, how it's dormant, and then awaken and unleashing it, how that sort of comes across. That's pretty cool. Long example, end game. Here we go. So this will probably be good. If you're running Godkiller for a single session, also known as a one-shot, decide what tier of renown you're playing at and proceed accordingly. The one-shot ends when your Godkiller kills or spares a god at the center of their quest. If you're running Godkiller for a campaign, then the same quest might span multiple sessions. The tension will naturally escalate until it reaches a climax, at which point you can decide to end the campaign or keep it going. Discuss desires with your player. When you're done with the one-shot or campaign, decide whether your Godkiller's actions have generated a heroic, tragic, or bittersweet ending. Describe an epilogue as a GM, and then invite your player to narrate the final scene as well. Finally, ask your player, how do your actions change the cradle forever? And then we've got some examples of some appendixes there. Oh, wow. Got some great names there, haven't we? The Winter Rot, the Orphan, the Black Forge, Way Home, Dogtooth, Little Slaughter. I like this, and I know we didn't go into how do we create gods and stuff like that, but look, it's just 1 or 2 lines. And this curse as well, so this is what you'd put on the player as well. Thou shalt not return home, thou shalt not stand in the shade of a tree, thou shalt not wield powers. Oh my god, that Mage Eater, holy heck. Incredible. Love that one. Oh, and then we've got a final appendix where we can look at some RPGs. Of course, Elden Ring. Of course, God of War. I was right. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I've not played that yet. Hades. Wicked and Divine is a cracking comic. Kieran Gillen, who I've met a few times. Very good. Mad Max Fury Road. Prometheus. Annihilation. Yes. Of course, The Witcher. Castlevania as well. Percy Jackson and the American Gods. Of course, that makes sense. And to see this Ashcan in action, yes, as we said at the beginning of this, yes, Godkiller First Blood podcast miniseries on the Transplanar RPG feed, including on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts as well. And that is it. I know we rushed the ending a little bit there, but I do have to go, unfortunately. Let's zoom back up to the top there. So, our final thoughts. Wow, what a very interesting game. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to check out that Godkiller podcast now, because I'd be very curious to be like, I wonder, because this is just the Ashcan, but already feels like a very fully formed system. I wonder what would be I wonder if the full version is just maybe an extra tier in that renowned, perhaps. Maybe some more examples for gods that you could create. Maybe some more tables to like pull from when you're creating your character. Maybe some more origins, perhaps. But ultimately, it feels like a very well-formed game. And very straightforward. Again, it falls into that Powered by the Apocalypse. So it almost feels a bit like Jade Dragon's, like Possum Creek games, in that sense of like it is narrative and trusting the other player and going through it there. Maybe I don't know if it really needs it, because I know it talks about lines of events. Maybe just have some content about like content warnings. Sorry, that's what I was meant to say. Content warnings or trigger warnings about some of these particular stories. Certainly like that Devout origin could be dealing with like issues of faith and maybe killing gods and all that sort of thing. Maybe if there's a character's line is about anything about portraying real world religions, perhaps that could be something, as well as gore and death, etc. I'm just thinking now of like Critical Role's Calamity and like the deaths of gods and that. Minor spoiler. It's quite gruesome and graphic, so maybe that's the only thing. I just maybe put like a, hey, so here's some themes that might come up in this particular kind of game. But yeah, I'm very tempted to play this game now. I don't think it does it justice just to do it as a one shot. I can definitely see it as like a 2-shot, maybe 4-shot, doing 4 just to track that thing. If they kill their first god in that first episode and then track and go through and maybe kill another god by the end of episode 4 or session 4. But there you go. That's Godkiller First Blood by Connie Chang. What a cracking version. Good job. Sorry, very good jobby bobby. Oh, thank you, Dead Toothbrush. Full version will be more edited and more art too. Oh, that's good to know, Brian. Yeah, ultimately, I think just a little bit, my tiny criticisms would be just a bit more in terms of layout, just checking wording slightly, but I think overall it's been better than some of the other versions we've looked at recently. But there you go, that is Godkiller First Blood by Connie Chang. Do check out their work, and go check out his actual play, Transplaner as well. Go support those folks as well. And obviously that's where her Godkiller podcast with C. Thomas is also on there as well, which I think I'm definitely going to check out, because I want to be able to like really visualize how certainly that first session of setup, maybe it would have been helpful to be like, because it did feel a bit like, okay, we got where the first god is, you're standing at the mouth of the cave, how would I structure it a little bit better, perhaps? I don't know. I know sometimes these conversational type RPGs, when you're starting out for the first time, and certainly if you're doing your first 2-player or duet RPG, that could be a bit intimidating, perhaps. But yeah, that's just my guess based on other Magpie games. No, I think that's fair, Brian, as well. I think it's just so interesting because this is very, very fleshed out as is. I think it just needs a little bit of a tweak. I think just a tiny bit, but not so much in the terms of rules. It's just adding a little bit more stuff, perhaps. But I would be interested to see if there is like a physical version of this, but maybe like a special edition cover or something like that. Because I just think the artwork is very beautiful. I would love to see it if it was printed like with the gold leaf or gold foil in it. So there you go. Anyway, as I said, I will hang on back to Big Fiona screen. I'm well over time. Hello, it's me. Thank you so much, friends. I appreciate you spending your Tuesday evening with me, and also just checking out the VOD later on if you got to this far. If you are interested, and you're like, Fiona, where else can we find your work? I do What Am I Rolling, which is a twice-monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast, where we do lots of different systems and stuff. It's been a lot of interviews just now, just because unfortunately my brain space has only been able to talk to other people and not run anything. I do have a couple I need to edit. I just need time to sit down and do it. If you're like, Fiona, I don't care about any of these other RPGs. I just want to talk about D&D. And I'm like, well, we do have another podcast for that. It's just D&D lore, the DN's book club, where we take some D&D lore each week and we try and make it a bit more tasty, a little bit, try and make it, understand it and improve it where we need to, and make sure it's accessible for everything, As Hamilton always says, we read the books so that you don't have to. And I need to go do a recording for that in about 5 minutes. I need to go do that soon. Is there anything else? I don't think there is. We're back tomorrow with another RPG. I had it written down, and of course, can I find it? Can I buggery? Thursday, we've got another Too Long Didn't Read tabletop RPG. We are doing Worldwide Wrestling 2nd edition, another powered by the Apocalypse Games, which I'm very excited to do. It's a bit longer, that one. We'll see how far we get into. We might not look into all the playbooks, but I'm very curious to know what the structure of that is, because it's a game that's always intrigued me. And it'd be something I'd love to do as part of a stream, or maybe a charity stream, but need to know the rules for it first. That come back to us on Thursday for that. And then there's, I think that's it. That's all I have currently on the docket. But I'm sure I'll be back. Might try and do another one of these streams on Sunday, but it might be quite late because I am away for the weekend. So we'll see what then. But anyway, thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful stream. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, whenever you're watching this. I'm going to find the end of stream button, and we'll do it with this hand. I'm going to wave with this hand, and I'll see you all very shortly. Bye!